of excellent advice to his niece. "In every letter I shall write to you," he said, "I mean to repeat to you, as a fundamental rule, to be firm and courageous and honest, as you have been till now." For the rest, in the crisis that was approaching, she was not to be alarmed, but to trust in her good natural sense and the truth of her character. She was to do nothing in a hurry, to hurt no one's amour propre, and to continue her confidence in the Whig administration. Not content with letters, however, King Leopold determined that the Princess should not lack personal guidance, and sent over to her aid the trusted friend whom, 20 years before, he had taken to his heart by the deathbed at Claremont. Thus, once again, as if in accordance with some preordained destiny, the figure of Stockmar is discernible, inevitably present at a momentous hour. On June 18th the King was visibly sinking. The Archbishop of Canterbury was by his side, with all the comforts of the Church. Nor did the holy words fall upon a rebellious spirit. For many years His Majesty had been a devout believer. "When I was a young man," he once explained at a public banquet, "as well as I can remember, I believed in nothing but pleasure and folly, nothing at all. But when I went to sea, got into a gale, and saw the wonders of the mighty deep, then I believed, and I have been a sincere Christian ever since." It was the anniversary of the Battle of Waterloo, and the dying man remembered it. He should be glad to live, he said, over that day. He would never see another sunset. "I hope your Majesty may live to see many," said Dr. Chambers. "Oh, that's quite another thing, that's quite another thing," was the answer. One other sunset he did live to see, and he died in the early hours of the following morning. It was on June 20th, 1837. When all was over, the Archbishop and the Lord Chamberlain ordered a carriage, and drove post-haste from Windsor to Kensington. They arrived at the palace at 5 o'clock, and it was only with considerable difficulty that they gained admittance. At 6 the Duchess woke up her daughter, and told her that the Archbishop of Canterbury and Lord Conyngham were there and wished to see her. She got out of bed, put on her dressing gown, and went alone into the room where the messengers were standing. Lord Conyngham fell on his knees, and officially announced the death of the King. The Archbishop added some personal details. Looking at the bending, murmuring dignitaries before her, she knew that she was Queen of England. "Since it has pleased Providence," she wrote that day in her journal, "to place me in this station, I shall do my utmost to fulfil my duty towards my country. I am very young, and perhaps in many, though not in all things, inexperienced; but I am sure that very few have more real good will and more real desire to do what is fit and right than I have." But there was scant time for resolutions and reflections. At once affairs were thick upon her. Stockmar came to breakfast and gave some good advice. She wrote a letter to her uncle Leopold, and a hurried note to her sister Feodora. A letter came from the Prime Minister, Lord Melbourne, announcing his approaching arrival. He came at 9 in full court dress and kissed her hand. She saw him alone, and repeated to him the lesson which, no doubt, the faithful Stockmar had taught her at breakfast. "It has long been my intention to retain your lordship and the rest of the present ministry at the head of affairs." Whereupon Lord Melbourne again kissed her hand, and shortly after left her. She then wrote a letter of condolence to Queen Adelaide. At 11 Lord Melbourne came again, and at 11:30 she went downstairs into the Red Saloon to hold her first council. The great assembly of lords and notables, bishops, generals, and ministers of state saw the doors thrown open, and a very short, very slim girl, in deep plain mourning, come into the room alone, and move forward to her seat with extraordinary dignity and grace. They saw a countenance not beautiful but prepossessing: fair hair, blue prominent eyes, a small curved nose, an open mouth revealing the upper teeth, a tiny chin, a clear complexion, and over all the strangely mingled signs of innocence, of gravity, of youth, and of composure. They heard a high, unwavering voice reading aloud with perfect clarity, and then the ceremony was over. They saw the small figure rise, and with the same consummate grace, the same amazing dignity, pass out from among them as she had come in, alone. End of Chapter 2, Part 2.